I'm not from Edmonton. I grew up south of Edmonton on a farm. I used to come downtown and sell vegetables at the downtown farmers market though. I used to be so in awe of the size of the escalators. Like we'd go and play in the conference center because it was so incredibly large.
I'm from a small town in North Dakota, so I'm a full import. Came to this new city, and I think came in summer. So the trees are in bloom, and yeah, I'm just coming out of through these trees and up to this skyline that to me was very, very big, and seemed just how would you ever even navigate all of this was pretty amazing experience. And then you get to know it, and then I think the experience is different once you get to know it. Not that it's not special or amazing anymore, but it becomes special in a different way. You have memories at these individual spots, and now you walk down 104th Street and run into 10 people walking down there, and walk into a cafe that might not even be in your neck of the woods, but there's that sense of familiarity and people, and yet there's plenty of room to walk down another street, I think. And
I grew up out of the city, a few hours out of the city, and so when you're a little kid, I think your experience with the place is typically through a side window in a vehicle. So I think one of the things that I was trying to pick out of my brain is driving the underpass by the ledge and then turning right on 109 and sort of going up the hill a little bit, and sort of that being a memorable space that you kind of remember. The other one is like the colored squares on the white mud on the way to West Edmonton Mall. It's just something in my mind where, like, as a kid, you remembered watching it change from green to blue to whatever the colors are, and that sort of being something that you remembered. And so that's something from when I was young. And then when I was sort of university aged, I had a friend in the city, and we went for a bike ride, and he worked downtown, so he wanted to show me the Icon building that he was working on, and we were cycling downtown, and I remember being very scared because I was in a clipless bike, and sort of just the first time being in traffic but not in a car. That was very now I do it all the time, but like the first time you do it, you're kind of like, whew, it's a different experience. So that's another sort of first memory, especially of Edmonton downtown. Sort of cycling downtown was quite a deal.
For me, downtown changing right now is, I think, one of the things that excites me most is being involved with Startup Edmonton and seeing some of the vision for what downtown could be. Even just for people in my field, like a gathering place and a place where lots of collisions and ideas get exchanged, and people exchanging ideas across disciplines and in different fields. And I think that's the thing that for me just has started to come alive in the last couple of years, because I would still, you still come down for meetings with clients, or you come down on the weekend, but I feel like that is really starting to happen a lot, and that's been, I think, a fairly recent thing for Edmonton, at least. We were deep south for a couple of years, or a few years, and I think primarily probably just because it was probably just a fluke. But I've always lived on the south side just since I came to school. Even it's just the way it is. But I think we were there, and just I think just the idea of just being somewhere where there's activity and there's people, and I think that, again, that idea of being able to bump into someone, and there's restaurants, and there's pubs, and there's coffee shops, and but I think it was that, and I think even just digging into some of the practical things around what does a downtown mean. I mean, the reason why we're probably not on this side of the river is just because a lot of us lived on the south side, and just very practically that act of crossing the river adds another 20 minutes to your commute and another $20 a day to your parking. So I think we're still really excited about that warehouse district, and who knows, we might find ourselves over there at some point too. But I think it was the idea, activity and potential, community of people and that type of thing too. So
I don't live in the city of Edmonton, but there is a real sense of community where we are around White Ave too, of just when you start going to places regularly and you're there, you look for opportunities to get out of your little space. And this summer I've gone for just, you just go walking through the residential areas, and you see these buildings that you had no idea existed, like lots of the heritage homes and stuff. And I mean, they're downtown, they're all over the place.
I would say Edmonton has kind of come around for me. Just culturally, like I think there's a really, really cool music, vibe here. There's a really cool, and I love music, and there's people in bands doing really cool stuff, and it's a city where people do things. They aren't afraid to try, and to do it themselves, and to fail, and I think that's really exciting. And so that's kind of what I take now. If I go to another city and you talk to someone, you can talk about, well, yeah, this happens here, and there's really, and design even wise. I think there's a really good design community. There's quite a bit of collaboration that happens, and people aren't afraid to sit down and talk and bounce ideas off each other and meet and do something together. So I think that's something to be proud of.
I think it's kind of realizing that where you invest, and use that term to sort of own like money, but also time and just where you hang out and that sort of thing. When you invest in places, they stick around. So it's kind of interesting to sort of sometimes see places that have grown and developed into something because people choose to continue to be a patron of a place, like a coffee shop or a little retail space or something like that. And for example, there's a great coffee shop in the neighborhood that I live in, and it now is sort of like a natural. I just seeing so many people, and sort of it being like a weekly contact area where you just sort of rub shoulders with people and in an informal way, and are able to keep up with them. That's a very cool thing. Because lots of people are sort of starters of things, people are really open to ideas and talking about ideas, and so professionally there's lots of times where people are sort of willing to collaborate on something or do something together, and in some ways that changes spaces because people want to own those spaces. It's really cool when you are part of something where you can work with the landlord and say, can we do something with this building, or and I think more often than not, that can happen here, and where you don't feel just like a resident or sort of like just a little element, but you actually can feel sort of knit into the fabric of what's happening in where you live and where you work.
But it's interesting too, even just looking back at that, because the farmers market now, like where I went to the farmers market, is now condos. So it's the building that's across from Canada Place. So you go back, and I worked at ATB Financial for 4 years, and so most days I'd walk past there, and it's you have those memories of the farmers market and the little shops that were on the front that you'd get to go get a chocolate bar or whatever during the day while you were working, and to see that changing, because all of the work on that, converting it into condos, was happening while I was living there. So seeing all that change over time, and then working at where we back right onto the Strathcona Farmers Market, where I also spent some Saturdays, and just it's an interesting reflection to see how all of that changes and the shift in the dynamics. But it's also really interesting that it just continues, right? It's like they don't have the space for the downtown market where it was, but now they've got another one, and they set it up, and it's really the same community. I mean, we were at a Creative Mornings talk the other day. Blair Lebsack was talking about his new restaurant, and he was talking about some of his suppliers, and they're selling vegetables at the farmers market, and it's people that were kids and have taken over their farm when so they were the kids when I was there, and it's these are people that through that community, and it's like life just goes on, but it's the same people cycling through and coming into the the downtown core on a regular basis.
I think what we're trying to get at with this whole thing is that a downtown is in quotes, air quotes, is really important to a city, right? It is that it's in the middle, it's the gathering place. It's even when you think about doing something really special, like it kind of feels like a waste if I would put it out, way out there, because not as many people are going to get to it, right? When I was in university, you come down on the odd time and you explore, it at night, or you explore this what's happening on this Saturday or something like that, or you come down for a festival. Or downtown still has a role even for a family, like even coming down to Churchill Square and running through the sprinklers on a Saturday is a really special thing, right? Or going to museum, or we'll be at the farmers market down here on the weekend, and that's something our kids even ask to do all the time, right? So it definitely is special, and it's something I don't think gets lost on even children or adults.
I think Albertans are also quite used to space, even though Edmonton is an urban city. Even in our urban spaces, we're used to space. We're used to lots of space, and so even with lot sizes and things like that. And when you interact with people that are from different urban centers, their willingness to live in small square footage or live in closer or lots of higher density is something where it's made me think about what I think about density and what I think about what is space, and it's been interesting to sort of try and minimize things that I own and what I really need as for my home, and what I need within my home, and what I can use my community and my downtown for to be a part of my home experience, but not something where I definitely need a room for it. I don't need a room to have a workout gym. I can use a membership for something, or an office. Maybe I don't need that room for an office. I can use a co-working space, or go to an office that's close by, and so I don't need to use my car to drive to that office. And those are problems that I'm interested in continuing to try and pursue, and not that those things come without difficulties either. Sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes it's not easy, especially in a city like this, where, to be honest, trying to take the LRT over the winter, it's actually faster to walk and not use transit. If you wanted to, the easiest thing to do is to drive and park. But if you don't want to do that, it makes it a very difficult decision. How are you going to get to work, or how are you going to do those things or access those services? Trying to live and work as much as possible without a car has been a very interesting challenge. It's just another challenge to transport, but also trying to raise the profile of one of the beautiful elements of Edmonton, which is the fantastic network of trails and river valley that we have. That's sort of untouched space that we all have the opportunity to access, and sort of come off the hills and come down into the river valley is something that I know lots of people have an eye to sort of continue to pursue in the future too, which I'm really excited about as well. Lots of times we get stuck on things like we want it to be world class, or we want it to be iconic, or we want it to be something where other places recognize it as something that's interesting, or travel worthy. Like, let's go to visit Edmonton because they have this. And you know what? I don't have as much time for that, because I'd rather have a conversation about what is genuine and real and usable for people here. So if especially for something like downtown or down in Rossdale, let's say, and we want to have something that helps carry people down there. I think questions that are in my mind are, what is it for? Why would we want to use it that way? Why do we want to draw people down there? How do we respect things like First Nations and the space that is sacred to them? And why are we making decisions? And sometimes I think the rationale sometimes, if we're honest with ourselves, is because we want it to be impressive to other people, and I'd rather it be functional and useful for us, and things that help change the face of how we interact and use Edmonton. And sometimes we lose sight of that, and that can be difficult.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the things that made a place special, they're a lot more granular than that, right? They're just the way a street felt. It's the feel and the culture of a few shop owners and how and it's even like seeing those relationships, and it's that kind of stuff. I think that stuff does have to be fairly organic, and it's maybe a little harder to plan. But I think as people thinking about how do you design a core, it is observing those things and then going, well, we probably can't facilitate all of that, but how do you make space for it, right? How do you make space and make things possible? And you almost start to imagine, like you go, like let's say, I have these moments, where you're in New York or you're in Seattle or Paris or wherever, where you go to this cafe and you have this perfect cup of coffee, and you go to this shop and eat something perfect, or look at something that just is beautiful, and you can almost imagine, if I lived here, I think I would, I'd be here every day, kind of thing, and you almost step into someone's life for a minute, right? Whereas some of those other things, I think they are valuable, but to me, I'm almost more interested in those like every day or those more frequent things, right, that make a city, familiar and special, and that you want to share, right? But yeah. One
of the things that we're really proud of is, as a city, is people that take ownership of something and start something, and I think that's something that we can somewhat agree, all agree that that's part of the identity of Edmonton. And I think the interesting thing is, how do we allow and create space for people to start things and own things and build things here? Somebody saying, I have an idea to light the bridge, or I have an idea for a canal, or I have an idea to change the Rossdale power plant, or I have an idea for this or that, right? And how do we, encourage those ideas and facilitate, empowering the building of those things, but also in a way that isn't just an open voting forum for let's change the name for Klondike Days, and we end up with something where we're not proud of it and we don't want to own that anymore. And really, I think that's a balance that I think we need to look to leadership in the future, is to really empower citizens owning things and owning decision making, involving people in ways where it's a legitimate thing, where because at the other side, we don't want just smart consultants from other people in the world telling us what we are, because I really think that we are proud of grassroots things that are built here, and sometimes we don't like to own things that people design and plop in here, and sort of say, here, we've designed something that's Edmonton, and they just did sort of like an information gathering session over 2 to 6 months, and then they then we are stuck with this thing that isn't really us. And so I think, I don't have all the answers, but I think it's a balance between those things where we can really start to help make decisions and build things where we enjoy them because we own them and we have participated in the building of them.